They're like recorders. They are known to be able to store knowledge, and they are sacred to the Maya because they represent, the skull represents the most sacred thing in the Mayan world. What the cross is to the Christian, the skull is to the Maya. It's the symbol of the sacrifice of the Christ of the Maya. The skull represents the way the twin Christ history evolved in the Mayan and the American world. In most of the American cultures, ancient cultures, the Christ is represented as two boys, twin boys.
Outside of the Christian world, you're saying?
In the American world, they're usually twin boys, but also in Egypt and other places it reverberates, and it also reverberates in the Bible. But that's the Mayan way of looking at the Bible. Because in the Bible, Jesus Christ was anointed to teach by another person. I believe it's his cousin, John, John the Baptist.
Yeah.
And in the end, he had his head cut off. He was beheaded. So to the Maya, that's almost the same story.
Interesting. I have to say, just going tangentially for a moment,
yes.
One of the most profound places I've ever been was the cave of John the Baptist, which still, that cave is there. It's now housed within a monastery.
Yes.
And wow, the information that flows through that place. And he was known to be a seer and retreat to the mountains into his cave. And this was the cave.
And so for the Maya, he is the actual Christ. And the actual Christ in the Mayan world, what we think after a lot of research is that the original Christ created a projection of himself in order to perform the acts necessary for the sacrifice that was intended in the Christian mission.
Yes, and I'm intrigued with this symbolism.
Yeah.
I'm also intrigued with the way in which crystal works.
Yes.
And the way in, because so many people have like stocks of crystal, but no one knows what they're for, how to use them, how to respect them, how to approach them.
Yes.
And so, again, to me, it's fascinating that this had been with these elders and had absorbed their body of knowledge and belief and function.
Yes.
And so now let's get to the part of the story. You've come with a whole entity here.
Yes.
And he's come into the middle of yours and Nobi's life. And what started happening in your life to have this third entity imbued with all this Central South American ancient wisdom?
Well, what happened was quite miraculous, and it was completely on the subconscious level. Once I received the skull, the Mayan calendar began to teach me with greater speed what it's for. I just started to practice the Mayan calendar, not out of any belief system, because I don't believe anything. I only study.
Right.
And it just turned out that the whole when this skull is in presence with a client receiving a Mayan calendar, my whole behavior changes. I have a formula of what I'm going to say, a pattern, and then all of a sudden I'm getting information from the skull that was very strange to me. But because I study, I do what I call shamanic study, and I do ritual, then I could trust that voice. And ritual or ceremony is the word sacrifice. You're making a sacrifice, like an ofrenda table, a mesa, like this is a mesa. And when you make that sacrifice and you make an offering, what you're doing, because you were educated in a science type of a society, a modern society, you are sacrificing your mind to your heart.
Yes, that's a very good point.
Yes.
Yes.
And so when you sacrifice your mind to your heart can now speak.
But it means the mind sometimes goes into fear because it's no longer in control.
Yes.
And this is the battle that the Western world has
Right.
between the mind and the heart.
Right, and the heart is the first to appear in the embryo. And the heart takes precedence. And we will not succeed on this earth in the job of peace and justice until we feel the world. And the Western mind is tied up with hierarchy, because in their sacred books they say that only the human has a soul. And the American Indian had to keep a straight face when they heard that. Where did you get that idea? We're all made from the same stuff, the same reservoir of spirit. And they call that reservoir cholel. They have a glottal stop. And it's a reservoir of spirit that can produce anything. It's like one of those Arnold Schwarzkopf movies.
Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, Schwarzkopf. Arnold Schwarzenegger movies where there's this guy made of metallic stuff that can form himself
Terminator.
into anything. Mm-hmm. Yes, that's a sort of a visual metaphor of what I'm talking about.
He's out, has a new movie.
Oh, wonderful.
Arnold is back and he's advancing his consciousness.
All right. Would you give him a little ad here?
Yeah, after being governor of California, but
Yeah.
yes, I digress.
And so anyway, when the Maya look at the world, they see no hierarchy. Mm-hmm. A stone is equal to a human. A plant is equal to a mm-hmm. human. A piece of earth, a drop of water in the ocean, they're all equal. So therefore, we have a relationship with them. They're not empty things that we use or dead things. They have a direct part in our evolution. That's why we use crystals. And I use pieces of straw and reeds. Reeds are very important. And when you have that, you lose the arrogance of the Western mind, because the Western mind thinks the human is superior to all.